I knew better 100 years ago. You didn't hear them say there's nowhere to go. You're still trying to get over. You're still thinking that you can try to get over.
Hi, I'm Jessica Fenton, and I'm here today with singer-songwriter Slim Stevens. Welcome, Slim.
Thank you.
So in your recent interview with Marina Sorensen, you said you would give anything to hear the tapes of your 1974 concert at Harvard. So did you get a receipt?
I said I'd give anything, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything.
What did I give? I got the tapes. I found the tapes. That's true, and I feel so lucky to have found them. I also felt lucky to find out I was being interviewed by a singer-songwriter herself. You're the J. Lima Foxtrot on SoundCloud, correct?
That is correct, J. Lima Foxtrot on SoundCloud.
And since you're about to ask me questions about lyrics, right?
Yes.
I did a little research of my own.
Oh.
And isn't it true you wrote Taken by the City?
Yes, it is.
And didn't you say in that song, wrapped in the same face and same name of the girl you still love who has changed, who was taken by the city that never sleeps, who's got no place for what was once our dreams?
Yes, that sounds quite familiar.
I really enjoyed that, and that's you playing the guitar too, right?
Yes, I do play guitar.
Wow. So I found my old tapes, and it was fun to listen to yours too. And did you write Virginia?
Yes.
Well, that was about driving away and leaving Virginia with your family?
Right. My dad was in the military, so we did a lot of that, yes.
And your mom called it following the uniform?
Yes.
I like that. It was funny because getting ready, knowing I was going to be talking to you and looking at my own old lyrics, to find out you were a songwriter and then to see you'd written a song about, well, it said, we're going back to Virginia, right? Through my tears, I ask her every night, we're going back to Virginia, right? Can we go tonight? Mm. That rang a big note with me because that's what I felt I was doing by finding the tapes of this guy from all those years ago.
From 1974.
Yes, yes.
So going back and listening to those, I mean, how did that feel?
I have people in my attic. My mother's papers are in my attic. And she wrote her 2 books, her poetry book and her novel, and so they were somehow packaged. In a way, my mother is packaged in a way. And my grandfather was too, in a way. He wrote a book about growing up in the Indian Territory. But I have my grandfather in the attic, and my mother in the attic, and my father in the attic. I have their papers, and I have hours of video of my mother. I didn't really do a lot of video camera work on my father or didn't do any on my grandfather. So I've had these people sort of calling me saying, when are you going to edit my papers? When are you going to make CDs? What are you going to do for these people before you go? So all the decades I've had that feeling. Oh, I should do it. Well, I'll do it someday. And of course, when I was actually running the camera on my mother, I knew I was getting ready for something. So now all of a sudden I found somebody else. It wasn't in the attic, thank goodness, because there's a temperature change up there. But it was in a closet where I had a lot of stuff. I found me. I found a 24-year-old guy in there. So I felt like, oh, you're moving to the head of the line. You know, that's you're going right to the top. So I'm meeting this person who was me. And it brings out the paternal in me in a sense, because I'm listening to this guy, this 24-year-old guy, and remembering his feelings and hearing songs I don't know. I don't know any of the songs. I wrote them all, but they were gone. You know, they were gone. There are relations. So it's a great feeling. And that's why I wrote down some of the lyrics. Did you take any science courses in high school?
Well, not by choice, but yes.
Yeah, okay. I was at college at Harvard and took an astronomy class, and I was just blown away by it, you know. And the guy said to me, "Oh, you didn't study any of this in high school, did you?" I said, "No." He says, "No." The guys who take this in high school, it's like, you know. The other guys who just take it in college for the first time, it's, what? Galaxy clusters? And wait a second, some of them out there are moving away at more than half the speed of light? What? So, what's my point? I guess my point is that this kid, I can feel this kid, I call him a kid, 24 years old, I guess it's not a kid. It's amazing how much of these lyrics had to do with that kind of awe about space. So, if the force that found those tapes for me or delivered them to me, I honestly didn't know I had them. If that force is listening, I made a list of the other things I'd like. I'd like to get the boy soprano tapes I made from the Unitarian Church in 1960. Maybe you can, do you have any pull?
I can see what I can do.
What's it called? SoundCloud? Can SoundCloud check that out for me?
I can look into it.
Also, the solo that Miss Johan gave me, boy soprano solo.
Ooh.
Wish I had that voice. Well, sometimes I do. Again, in the Manhasset Junior High Chorus Concert. And then George Callahan, Charlie Robeson, and me singing Duke, 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 Duke of Earl. That was in 1957. And the Barbershop Quartet with Faye Axtell, he was our Barbershop Quartet leader. You can get me those too.
Sure.
I wanted to talk to him so bad, this 24-year-old kid, listening to these tapes, saying, I wanted to just get in the old reel-to-reel TIAC 3340S and say, it's okay, don't worry, it's going to be all right. Don't be too hard on yourself for being unhappy, you know. I don't think anybody... Well, I was going to say I don't think anybody was telling that kid that, you know, at the time. But he did hear it. He did hear it in certain ways. I saw when I was listening to your songs and listening to your incredible drum tracks, they called you urban.
Apparently.
That's what they called you, urban. And I was thinking,
flavor.
Whenever I'm picking up my guitar, you know, people walk in, what kind of music do you play, you know? So for years I've said, funky folk space rock. I have no idea why, but just shut them up. Just shut them up. And I didn't realize how much of the space part was in there until I got to these old lyrics and saw how much it was talking about the speed of light and all that stuff. Also, in thinking about this, I realized, wow, I've got another hero. You know, I have a 24-year-old hero. You were here earlier today. I just happened to be playing Bob Dylan, you know, and he was my hero. But I can't edit him.
No.
But he was my hero, and of course, listening to this stuff too, I thought, oh my Lord, this is me at 24. You know, Bob at 18 was so, whatever the word is, finished. You know, his stuff was finished, you know. This stuff that I listened to was so raw. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe you'll learn how to play the harmonica someday, because you don't know now at 24, you know, or that was the feeling, you know. So it was easy to put yourself down for those things. But I saw the desire and the musicality. So as I'm listening to the tapes, I'm getting this bonus of these melodies, which obviously means something to me because that's why I put them together. So now they're going through my head, and one of the reasons I wasn't as prepared for this as I wanted to be is because I've been staying up reworking one of those melodies. It's like, really? Oh wow, this is somebody else's I can edit this, and that 24-year-old can't stop me, and it's sort of ours, but I can fix it now, you know? I can't go back to some of Bob's songs. 22 of his songs I wouldn't change a word in, but I can't go back to the others and say, well, you know what, let's blah, 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 you know, pull out the English teacher pen. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, rarely do you get that opportunity.
Right.
Which is great.
You have your old tapes.
I do, and I'll tell you, I have not listened to them yet.
In cassette form.
In cassette form, yes. I don't even know that I have a cassette player, so that's my number one excuse. Being able to physically play them.
You told me before we started this, do you have at least, say, 24 songs?
Finished, probably 100 that are not finished.
Whoa. So if you were to hear some of the old ones now, it wouldn't be as shocking to you as it was to me, or do you think?
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because the other day I had my iPod at the gym, and I guess it ended up on shuffle, and I had some old demos on there from maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And one song came on, and I thought to myself, this is actually pretty good. This is pretty good. So I went back to the old file that I had. I was digital at this point, luckily. And I brought all those files into a new session. Pro Tools is what I use. And I started reworking this old song that, ironically, at the time I thought was horrible. But as an older version of myself, I have such an appreciation for it. So I've kind of done something similar to what you're doing. But the distance in between is not as much. But it still has the same feeling. But that's how it goes. So, all right. In some quarters, I hear you are famous for compiling the 15 secrets of happiness. So how do they fit in with your feelings about this 24-year-old guy that you're getting to know?
7 out of 12. He gets a score of 7.
Score of 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are 15 secrets of happiness, and he got 7 out of 15 right, which is pretty good. Of course, I'm a little biased, and maybe as we go through, I'll point out what they are. But he, and in the lyrics, maybe I'll wait. I'll just put a box here and talk about them as we go to the lyrics. I mean, the first one, Opening the Door, was the name of the song. America, I wanted to throw you from my door. I thought, wow, I remember. I was associating, I'll just keep going. My mind not bleeding like a scapegoat anymore, thinking I could leave you as a broken dream to me, not knowing that your goodness is not goodness just of me. I grew up in the image of a young blue-suited man who called himself father in the system that he ran. Oh, it ran him too, I shouted out at anyone who cared. I didn't see it ran me too, my eyesight was impaired. I was thinking, wow, that was my, what's the term? There's some fanfare, in the opera where they do it, but anyway, it was my opening hello at this concert. And it's interesting, I was thinking, okay, what was going on there? On the one hand level, my family lived through politics in a way, and I didn't like that. I felt that they were hiding behind talking about politics, hiding the real feelings. And obviously I had some fatherness too. I was saying, a blue-suited man who called himself father in the system that he ran. Oh, it ran him too, I shouted out at anyone who cared. I didn't see it ran me too. So I was saying, oh, wait a second, he's not as bad as, or I can understand him. And then I realized it was the same way. We were talking before about how I treated my father, and how I was hard on him. When I turned 25, I wrote a poem. I've described this elsewhere, of course, and in the long poem on living a fourth of the century, I referred to Robert Stevens, the oppressor. Well, okay.
It's pretty strong. And
not surprisingly, I sent a copy to my father. This is the same guy, same age actually, And God bless him. I remember my father saying, I got your letter and you included a poem about turning 25. and I noticed you referred to me as an oppressor in there. I'd be happy to discuss that with you more if you wish, something like that. So in other words, he was a very smart, he gave a neutral response, non-condemning, because he knew, I'd like to think he knew that I'm sitting here someday just loving him for being, if that's an oppressor, I hate to see oppressor with a capital O. But he was a utopian too, that he acted as though he was above money, and taught us to sort of act like we were above money. And as I look back at it, I didn't like his. I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. I had $2,000. I probably had earned most of it. Maybe I got some of it. And I gave it away to two people and helped them come to this country. And that was praised greatly. In other words, it wasn't a family that would praise you for leaving with 2 and coming back with 4. It was a family that would praise you for leaving with 2 and coming back with nothing.
Okay. Because
you did it for a good thing. So part of me was like, I'm not sure I agree with that. I'm not sure I believe that. Something like, what about mine? Why can't you have something? I have a good friend who won a doll and a prize, and her mother took it from her. Well, you don't need that, and she'll never forget that. Why can't she have her doll? I think of the church lady who personal life is a mess. She weighs 400 pounds. She's unhappy. Could be a church man too. I don't mean to make it gender-based, but at church, all you'll hear about is the people in Darfur or the hunger or something, and there's no one's ever taken care of the inside, which is sort of related to me in the sense of saying, okay, this 24-year-old is next. Not my mother, not my grandfather, not my father. I'm going to work on me. So that's sort of what I've been adjusting to in terms of my own past and my family.
Okay, well, what do you think? What's next?
Next was the second song. I had a job in the Richmond Tunnel.
Well, do you want to just listen to a snippet of this 1974 guy, and then watch Diamond in the Night?
Okay, it's be a part of I had a job in the Richmond Tunnel.
Okay.
Is that going to be over here? That's the monitor over here?
I believe so.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and watch it.
I had a job in the Richmond Tunnel. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe I thought I saw everyone empty and dripping from the seam. Winston was my friend, a runaway from school. I barely saw him through my shadows. He thought working in a tunnel was cool. We sat in the booth in the tunnel, watching the lights drift by. Winston discussed his future in the future, and I tried to remember why. I was here in this century, in this country, in this tunnel, in this space, in this drive. When I came back and where I had been and where I had left my life.
On the dark, snowy mountain, she walked all alone. The knife of cold had touched her skin and soon would reach the bone. She pushed on so steady, searching for a light. The wind whispered to her, he'll see your soul tonight. She looked up in the sky, 1,000 lights did shine. Her mothers, 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 back to the start of time. Mother in the sky, which way shall I go? Will this be my only bed here in this deep snow? In his dark mountain cabin, the hunter lay alone. The loneliness of ages was on him like a stone. Suddenly in the sky, 1,000 voices cried. His fathers, fathers, fathers said, "Son, come outside." He fired up his lantern and ran out in the night. The memory of treachery fallen from his eye. Mother in the sky, I think I see a light. She reached out to touch the diamond in the night.
Well, that was interesting.
Yes, please.
I had a job in the Richmond Tunnel. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe I thought I saw everyone empty and dripping from the seams. Winston was my friend, a runaway from school. I barely saw him through my shadows. He thought working in a tunnel was cool. We sat in a booth in the tunnel watching the lights drift by. Winston discussed his future in the future, and I tried to remember why. I was here in this century, in this country, in this tunnel, in this space, in this strife, when I came back and where I had been and where I had left my life. So you were talking before about Jagged Little Pill, because I was asking you, for me, Ballad in Plain D, that comes to mind. It was a Bob Dylan song where he just talked about his feelings and wow, it just went straight to me. And I get the impression that Jagged Little Pill, the songs on that, had the same effect on you. So this is me trying to remember my place, and this is where I get points. I seem to remember some people screaming at each other in a room. This is where I make good on one of the 12 Secrets of Happiness, which is talk about the bad stuff.
Talk about the bad
talk
stuff.
about the bad stuff, which was pretty revolutionary in our family. In other words, you talk about the weather or politics, but to sit actually to talk about the bad stuff and process it wasn't. So here I was at 24. I seemed to remember some people screaming at each other in a room. I seemed to see someone like me hiding his ears in a wound. I seemed to see a blue-suited man, here he is again, watching me with glaze-covered eyes. I seemed to see him loading a car, saving the seats for his lies.
Ooh.
I seemed to see a woman holding me and facing the sky. You see, she said, we're just like it. I hope you're satisfied. I see a skeleton with a heart attached, running from door to door. I put my hand out at every face. What with me do you need more? I'm baffled.
Wow.
Because these
are really intense lyrics, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Well,
as a lyricist, I can comment on that and say, wow.
I miss Jagged Little Pill, so I'm sure from the title I would assume that there's... But things that baffle me about this, one is my mother was the angry one. And I'm surprised that taking the pot shots. Of course, maybe you could say my mother was still alive because they're both gone now. but they were both alive when I was writing this. They weren't invited to my concert. I wasn't sharing these lyrics with them like I was sharing my father, telling my father he was an oppressor in a poem. But there's another point. This is where Slim gets another one right here, because he says, Secret 13, I write down my dreams and I remember them, especially the bad ones. This skeleton with a heart attach, that was a real dream I had over and over again, a nightmare. And I figured out years later, what do you know? But A&P, which was a Safeway, like a giant store, and I had a dream of a skeleton with a heart attach, going through this house that was next to the A&P. And I connected to my mother because I always went shopping at the A&P with my mother. So what do they call it? Displacement or something, that somehow that was me being scared of her moving through the room because she was a rageaholic. She was going to come after me. I don't know. So anyway, we sat in the tunnel with our memories. At least mine were finally of the past. Ha ha ha. Although at times I wondered if I could hold anything to last. You live in a town south of Richmond. Could it be we had to part? Winston was saying for the 18th time that a tunnel is a great place to start. Then this vision came to me of a pale face, sick and free and beyond pain, who subsisted in Abyssinia and still fed me with one small grain. I was dropping the very last pieces when I stopped at the mirror on his door. He said last night I dreamed I was murdered. That just evens up the score. So I had three heroes. My father was a hero. Bob Dylan was a hero. He was already a hero. I'm at 24. He was already my hero since I went to Unitarian summer camp at the age of 13 or something. Then I went to Ethiopia, taught in a school, and I guess you'd call that my Rambo stage.
Rambo?
All right. Oh, no, Rimbo.
Oh, Rimbo.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Rambo.
The alienated
like the
poet. I don't know, R-I-M-B-A-U-D. The alienated poet.
Okay.
Sad in self-exile.
Okay.
And when I was there with another guy from my school who was teaching there, we met a guy named Robert. And he was, I guess, my third hero. I call this my Jesus phase, my disciple phase. He had been a professional soccer player, football player in England. He had gone to an English private school. And we thought he was fantastic. And he, of course, I didn't understand the dynamics. He loved the fact that we thought he was fantastic. And we would sit up at night and smoke, and he would read, we'd do the I Ching, and we'd read Krishnamurti, Siddhartha, I don't know, just all that stuff. And we'd laugh at how mundane I was, that I said, you know what, I still this way, I have to go brush my teeth. Because I don't like to go to bed without brushing my teeth. How mundane and how pedestrian, that was, and we thought he was cool. And that's the guy I'm referring to here.
Okay.
And I'll save the rest of that story for us later. But that's what he wrote a poem that said, last night I dreamed I was murdered. That just evens up the score. Oh, that sounds so profound. I'm not sure what it means. The first thing you noticed as a light was it me I heard him address. That is the absence of light. In fact, there's total darkness. Well, then the other was there in his sadness, three in a room made of reeds. That was the other friend. Robert held the world in the palm of his hand and swallowed it like a seed. Who's going to dream this dream? This is another song he would say. This is the only song he would sing. Who's going to dream this dream? Who's going to be the one? Who's going to dream this dream? Who's going to be the sun? In a sense, then, he was a singer-songwriter model. Mm-hmm. If you want, because he did have a guitar, and and it was all emotive, He wasn't giving the names of chords or anything like that. He was feeling something. I thought that the earth wasn't moving. I thought all animals were the same. I never remembered just why I came down until I stopped in his frame. So this is me trying to find meaning from life in my discipleship. There's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, there's freedom in one gentle step. Anyone can stand in the light of the sun. Did you forget, he said, and left. You still talk about a man who was nailed, you're still talking about the meaning of death. You know that the earth goes faster than light, and you know that's not as fast as breath. I had a job in the Richmond tunnel, maybe it was a dream, maybe I thought I saw everyone empty and dripping from the seams. Winston was my friend to run away from school, I barely saw him through my shadows, he thought working in a tunnel was cool. You live in a town south of Richmond, could it be we had to part? Winston was saying for the 18th time that a tunnel is a great place to start. So what's unspoken, this is where it reminds me of some of Dylan's songs, like I Dreamed I Saw St. Augustine, where he sets up something, facts or something, and then all of a sudden there's one line which just, and in this one, you know, Dylan says, I dreamed I saw St. Augustine alive with fiery breath. I dreamed I was amongst the ones who put him out to death. Oh, I awoke in anger, so alone and terrified. I put my fingers against the glass and held my head and cried. So it's like all of a sudden there's like this incredible personal sadness or whatever, this image. Or in I and I, at the end he says, I made shoes for everyone, even you, but I still go barefoot. So like at the end of the song, it's just like, what? And so for me, that what this song is really all about is the fact it's to my lover, the woman I loved, and the only true line, or the kicker line here is, you live in a town south of Richmond, could it be we had to part? That's all I could say about being isolated from her, and trying to sort out those feelings. Yeah. Which, ironically, too, she was the one I wrote. After I met this guy, I started writing these, instead of cheery letters like, oh, my students are great, we're studying trigonometry, and I went to the, any factual stuff like that. It was sort of like, the sky is one, some I Ching thing, like three hammers against the anvil or something. And she's like thinking, what's this mean? So I was coached by him. It's sort of like asceticism, you know. In other words, now looking back at this guy, and that was when I was 20, 21, and I was going through this disciple stuff in Ethiopia. I can see going through that ascetic desire, which is in a lot of people. Okay, why should I have romantic attachment, you know, physical attachment? I'll be above it. I'll be a spiritual thing. And so looking back, that's what I was subjecting my poor girlfriend to. But, of course, it was all indirect. Oh, boy. I see the next one here is You Can Try.
Yeah. Do you want to listen to a snippet of this one?
Okay.
Before we move on?
All right.
All right, let's go ahead and do that. This was the precursor to You Split the Atom. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. This
Okay.
has a lot of You Split the Atom underneath.
All right, let's listen to this real quick.
They split the atom working 9 to 5. Oil from the earth for the car that I drive. 3 billion people with their eyes to the sky. The head of a match is a good place to die. There's something moving which you can't understand. The boy coming up behind you says it's not a new kind of man. He tells me all day long why he can't live where he stands. Is loving stronger than dying by a hungry boy's hand? I knew better 100 years ago. You didn't hear them say there's nowhere to go. You're still trying to get over you're still thinking that you can try to get over.
You tried to make a man, you said, if anyone can do it, well, then I can. Try your heart, change it. Try your body, rearrange it. You knew better 100 years ago. You didn't hear them say there's nowhere to go. This is, by the way, this is the melody, by the way, that's been absorbing me for the last 5 days or 7 days, because it's like, oh, I got to figure this out.
The melody from the tapes.
Right. So this is the one.
This is the one that's really got to you.
Yeah,
melody?
This is the one I've stole that I'm working on now. Yep. You're still trying to get over. You're still thinking that you can try to get over. You finally got enough relativity to see that this is the best place that a place can be. Deliver flesh for a century. Milk wagon in space. Elementary. I don't know what that is. I usually I can figure out what I'm. You're not the first one to want to wait and see. The library is full of books on family. Okay, let's go to our secrets of happiness and see if we got another point here. Secret of happiness, number. What page are the secrets on? Well, talk about the bad. Okay, no. From the silent tapes, I'm too embarrassed to admit that I need other people.
Okay.
I'm too embarrassed to admit that I need other people.
To admit that you need other people.
I don't think there's a human being on the earth that hasn't had that feeling of, because we're all social, whether we like it or not. So that's here he is, admitting that he wants to wait and see and read books on family. Mm-hmm. So that was like figuring out that we are a product of the family life. We can't just pretend we're, Robert in Ethiopia didn't tell me about his family, whether his sister was mean to him or what his mother did, Freedom, he said, is nothing left to lose. The earth is round, so run as long as you choose. I like that lyric. Let's use that somewhere. Okay. Everything you steal will soon be reused. If you think you can stop, try to refuse. They split the atom working 9 to 5, which stayed with me. Oil from the earth for the car that I drive. 3 billion people with their eyes to the sky. The head of a match is a good place to die. There's something moving you can't understand. The boy coming up says it's not a new kind of man. He tells me all day long why he can't live where he stands. Is loving stronger than dying by a hungry boy's hand? There's something moving which you can't understand. The fool believes the picture in the astronomer's hand. I say, how'd you get into my room? He says, my telescope's been banned. Is being greater than living for a crab in the sand? All right, so he's lucky I'm coming along to fix this up.
Yes, the building is still haunted, just as I feared. And the words that I wanted took 100 years. Your ghost, don't I know, would never rehearse. So I'll strum real slow till she picks up the verse. You knew better 100 years ago. The earth is round at the end of the road. You said you'd run till the darkness is gone. So I'll just strum and wait for the dawn. bricks are long cold, the chairs are long gone, the program's long sold, the curtain long drawn. I stare at the spot where all night on the lawn you read my thoughts and I wrote your song. The piano she played, is it still in the hall? Is she there on the stage? Can she hear me at all? She said she'd come when the darkness is gone, so I'll just strum and wait